Democrats' greatest fear: Christians in government. That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt, and I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. Was America founded as a Christian nation? That is the headline from a CNN piece written July 4th, 2015 by Mark Edwards, who is listed as a U.S. history and politics professor at Spring Arbor University in Michigan, and the author of The Right of the Protestant Left, God's Totalitarianism. Was America founded as a Christian nation? The CNN headline goes, and Mark Edwards writes, that question has served a variety of political causes since July 4th, 1776, from legalizing persecution and aiding runaway slaves to fighting Nazis and communists. Well, maybe it has served as a political cause, but some of those political causes have actually skewed the true intent, the true intentions of founding fathers when they gave us this great government, this great limited government, this great democratic republic that is guided by a constitution that also recognizes, as you can read in the Declaration of Independence, that individual rights and liberties are endowed by a creator, by God, and not government. So, does that make us a Christian nation? Well, before I get into more of that, I want to quickly mention, if you like Bold and Blunt, you may get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, at Real Life Network, at WashingtonTimes.com, and wherever podcasts are available. And if you do get Bold and Blunt at WashingtonTimes.com, be sure and subscribe to my Bold and Blunt newsletter. It comes out Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. All you have to do is enter your email address, and you will get delivered to your email box every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, my commentaries that I write at the Washington Times, as well as my Tuesday and Thursday Bold and Blunt podcasts. And one more quick mention, check out my latest book. It's called God-Given or Bust: Defeating Marxism and Saving America with Biblical Truths, which plays right into the topic of this Bold and Blunt. Was America founded as a Christian nation? All right, let me read a little bit more about what Mark Edwards wrote on that topic back in 2015 for CNN. Scholars have spent years reflecting on the intersection of American religion and nationalism. Why do so many people think the country's Christian history is important? Well, I can answer that because in a few short words, you can't have God-given individual rights and liberties if you remove God from that equation, right? What's left? Given. Well, who gives? Who gives? Well, government is the one that steps in and fills God's shoes when the people don't keep God in charge of the country. The Declaration of Independence, as founding fathers penned it, sort of the marching orders for how government should be formed in America, sort of the mission statement, the operating statement of how America should be run and governed, says that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, among, and that governments are instituted among mankind in order to preserve and protect those God-given individual rights and liberties. So take out God-given, and what do you have? You have government granted. Take out God from that God-given equation, and what you get instead is government granted, government given. And that's kind of where we're at in America right now, which is kind of why I wrote that book, God-Given or Bust, that it's basically time in America. We've hit that fork in the road. Are we going to be a nation where rights come from God, or are we going to be a nation where rights and liberties come from government? Which path are we going to follow? Because that right there determines the freedom the level of freedom Americans have. You know, you could have a government such as we have now in place in the White House and in the positions of control in the House and Senate, filled with people who believe in individualism, who believe that government should be reeled in, that regulation should be few and far between, that the economy is best guided by a free market viewpoint that allows individuals to take the lead in providing for themselves and their families and keeps government out of the picture except collecting taxes, necessary taxes, in order to uphold the guarantees of the Constitution. And that's it. No more than that. And right now, our government is pretty much aligned with what we should not just expect, but demand from our politicians in terms of allowing us to live our lives, right, in a free way. But it wasn't so long ago, it wasn't very long ago at all, that we had a government in place in Congress and in the White House who believed otherwise, right? Who believed that government, and the bigger the government, the better, was better positioned to control the resources of society to distribute at will to those they deemed worthy, to those they deemed needy. And so it's so fast how quickly the political climate in America can change. And so if we don't want our rights and liberties reliant on the political classes, if we want them to remain steadfast, regardless of who's serving in political offices, then we need to keep in mind the big war in America is over God-given rights and liberties. God-given. Yes, we need to involve ourselves in politics, and we need to speak up when the culture goes awry and down wicked paths, as it has for a very long time in America, and as it still is. We need to speak up and be bold and push back on the evil, but we also need to realize that Donald Trump, as great as he is as a president, and the staff that he has surrounded himself with, as great as they seem to be in the White House, in the executive, they're not the be-all and end-all of America's freedoms, of the fate of America's freedoms to the individual. They are temporary. They are temporary solutions, or in the case of the previous administration, they are temporary walls. But they are not the be-all and end-all. They are not the savior. They are not the permanent force to determine the permanent fate of Americans' liberties and rights. Those come from God. We are endowed by our Creator. So the discussion of whether or not America was founded as a Christian nation is always interesting to me, because it's not to say that founding fathers wanted us to declare America through the government a Christian nation. They fled the Church of England, remember. It's not that founding fathers wanted the politicians to wave the Bible and demand adherence and obedience to the Bible from their political offices. It's just that this nation, when it was founded, the God of this nation was the Christian God. Founding fathers carried with them biblical truths when they forged our government. It wasn't the Hindu God, it wasn't the Muslim God, it wasn't the Wiccan God, it wasn't any other so-called God, and these are gods with small g's, because being a Christian, I believe in one God, and when you say other gods, you're really supposing that there is such a thing. Well, there isn't. There's God, and then there's not. Different discussion, different day. But founding fathers carried with them the Judeo-Christian faith when they were forging this government, and they turned to biblical truths and even biblical passages for inspiration, for motivation, for creative thought, for guidance on how to give a government that recognizes individual liberties. And they came across the notion that only God can give liberty for the long term. And government, the rightful role of government, is to preserve and protect what already God grants to each and every of his creations, to each and every individual. So CNN opining away about how stupid it is that America was founded on as a Christian nation is sort of a skewing, because it supposes the point that either America was founded on a rock of Christian churches, which isn't true. We still have religious liberty. Instead of the more truthful, America was founded on the rock of Judeo-Christian ideals. And that's a very big distinction that the left likes forgotten, because it helps enable their viewpoint that all politicians should be atheists, and all politicians who aren't atheists should at the very least keep their religion, keep their religious views and their religious values and morals for church on Sunday, and that's it. There's another piece that questions the same thing. This one, though, is from Wall Builders, the Founding Fathers on Jesus, Christianity, and the Bible. And this was posted May 29th of 2023. For decades, accusations against the Founding Fathers have abounded. One of the common criticisms, Wall Builders writes, is that the Founding Fathers were a collective group of atheists, agnostics, and or deists who wanted a strict separation of church and state, resulting in a secular government and public square. Some go as far as foolishly writing that these allegations are so evident that no actual evidence or proof is needed to substantiate their claims. While these charges are blatantly false, it can likewise be acknowledged that not every founding father or early American leader would fit in the category of born-again Christian, although most of them would. Still reading from Wall Builders. However, the overwhelming majority of founding fathers and early leaders wrote openly and often about the influence of Christianity, the Bible, and Jesus on their lives. Just wrapping up with this, while the following examples do not give the complete story of the faith journey of the individuals included in this list, these quotes and excerpts do give a glimpse into the thinking of these men. And then Wall Builders goes on to quote a variety of founders on their views on religion and faith in government. John Adams: without religion, this world would be something not fit to be mentioned. In polite company, I mean hell. That's one quote for him. Another one: the Christian religion is, above all the religions that ever prevailed or existed in ancient or modern times, the religion of wisdom, virtue, equity, and humanity. Because, and this is interesting too, I think I'll do a podcast on it sometime. When you read the Bible, you notice that the word equity does sometimes come up, right? But it's God's equity. It is God who creates equity. It is God who oversees equity. And it's just interesting to me because the left, the Marxists in the left, love to just steal from God's words and then skew it and sell it as something completely different than the meaning God intended, which is oh so very like Satan, right? Which is oh so very like the Democrat Party of today. Samuel Adams, reading more from Wall Builders. The name of the Lord, says the scripture, is a strong tower. Thither, there's a word you don't see too much today, thither. Thither the righteous flee and are safe. Let us secure his favor, and he will lead us through the journey of this life, and at length receive us to a better. Sounds kind of religious to me. Josiah Bartlett. He was a military officer, signer of the Declaration of Independence, and the governor of New Hampshire. He called on the people of New Hampshire to confess before God, and this is the quote, right? This is what he said to them, to confess before God their aggravated transgressions, and to implore his pardon, meaning God's pardon, and forgiveness through the merits and mediation of Jesus Christ, that the knowledge of the gospel of Jesus Christ may be known to all nations, pure and undefiled religion universally prevail, and the earth be filled with the glory of the Lord. Can you imagine the governor of New Hampshire calling on the people of that state with that statement today? Just saying the words, Jesus Christ, from a political office, and the left goes nuts, right? There are many more. But the real problem here is not that many in America dispute the fact of America's Judeo-Christian and, over Christian foundings. It's that the few in America who openly, rebelliously dispute that have the loudest, most obnoxious voices, right? And they clamor for everybody in America to be secular, everybody in America to be atheists. And they cry that politicians have no business bringing God in government. And so the problem is that many in America are being raised with that sort of impression in their mind. Anyone who goes into the public school system nowadays, right, emerges from K through 12 with many doubts planted in their minds about the Judeo-Christian founding of America, and that sort of propaganda gets deepened as they go on to the places of higher learning in America. So the real problem here is not so much that people in America don't believe in the founding fathers' visions of America, the Judeo-Christian principles upon our rock of freedom was built, but that many in America either don't fight for that, they don't see the importance of fighting for God-given, they engage only in politics and maybe in culture, but not in the actual battle for God-given rights and liberties. And combined with that, you have too many youth who are coming out of America's school systems with the propaganda put in their minds by the left that says government and religion are two separate roads and never the two shall meet. So if we have youth in America who are not properly raised with the Christian conservative values upon which this nation was built, then what does that say for the future of America? Where does that lead the hope of America? Well, again, it's God-given versus government granted. And what we need in this country is an awakening of youth to the perils, the true perils that are destroying our freedom in America, and not just an awakening of the youth, but then a real determination of these youth to become the next leaders of America, to ensure that our course in this country stays on that path of Christian conservatism, Judeo-Christian ideals. And thankfully, my guest today offers just such a program. His name is Adam Josefczyk, and I am so grateful to have him here. Adam, thanks for being on Bold and Blunt.
Thanks, Cheryl. It's an honor to be on the show. Thank you so much.
I love what your organization, Forge, has been doing. Tell listeners a little bit about what you've got going on.
Forge Leadership Network is designed to raise up the next generation of faithful conservative leaders in politics and the public arena. So we recruit 18 to 25-year-old Christian conservatives and give them long-term mentorship, training, and then the connections necessary to make a long-term faithful impact on the public arena.
And your graduates, recently at least, have ended up in some pretty high places in political halls. Talk a little bit about where the placement has led your grads to serve.
That's right. We're very excited with the new Trump-Vance administration. We actually have 4 Forge graduates who are working in the White House in some incredible positions with the vice president in speech writing, with the president, special assistants, and more. So it's been a thrill to see them ascending to such pivotal roles in our country. We have a young person who's going to be clerking on the Supreme Court in a few next term, and which is an incredible honor in our first grad to receive such an opportunity. And then in the States we have a real focus on trying to raise up a talent pipeline for the conservative movement in the States, and we have a number of grads who are working as senior aides to governors in their home states. Some who are working as aides in state legislators, and then we've had 9 grads who have been elected to office, including one state representative in Ohio.
This is such a cool idea to me, particularly because of the faith-based angle here. And you're co-founder and president of this group, correct?
That's right.
So what led you? I mean, what was the genesis? What was the idea? What was the logic when you started the group?
Well, I've got to tell you, I'm a big sports fan, and in baseball, there's this thing called the farm team, right? Which is that Major League Baseball teams are only as good as their minor league talent cultivation, right? Which in baseball, somewhere along the lines got the term the farm team. And I got involved in politics here in my home state of Ohio right after college, and started really getting together with some great friends who just kind of decided we were going to try this political thing out together. We were motivated by our pro-life convictions and other conservative convictions, and just decided to kind of do this together. But we quickly encountered a few observations, which is that there were a lot of other young people. We were very blessed with some wonderful mentors and some great networking that gave us a real support system that helped us really stay to our best principles and stay accountable and encouraged and that even with political setbacks and everything. But we were seeing a lot of young people get really burned out, disillusioned, or even compromised, right? They'd get involved in politics and they'd get involved with bad actors who were in the classic people in it for the wrong reasons, or they'd get involved with folks who just really weren't effective and strategic. And so we would see all these young people burn out and get disillusioned. And so we said, well, what if we could actually create a program where we could give them not only the skills needed to succeed in the public arena, but even more importantly, the incredible godly friendships and mentors in order to support them. And that's what will make sustain a faithful impact for a long time. So that's what we set out to build, is to give them that support system in addition to the skills, to give them all the connections and all the networks, but to have people who are there beside them and have their back.
So how does it work? How does somebody listening right now, what are the steps to take to apply for this?
Yeah, great question. So if you're a young conservative, or if you care about a young conservative ages 18 to 25, right now actually is a great time to be talking about this, because application is open for the 2025 Forge Leadership Summit. So I'll give your listeners a brief overview of how Forge works. We recruit these young conservatives ages 18 to 25. They apply and get selected. There will be the top 100 applicants this spring will be selected for this summer's Forge Leadership Summits. The Forge Leadership Summits are 5 days of intense training on timeless conservative principles, practical skills workshops like media training, networking, interviewing, resume prep, and more. And then they actually take part in a simulated legislative process in the State House, coached by state legislators, and even a campaign competition. And so after those 5 days, we are then, it doesn't stop there though. So after those 5 days, we then select the standouts. We will select the top 50 standouts who will then be inducted into a year-long mentorship academy. And that's not a gap year. It's something where a young conservative is working full-time or in school full-time, but they're connected digitally. They're doing a civil society biblical citizenship curriculum, and they're getting back together twice a year, once in DC for the national networks, and they're even paired with a mentor, somebody like yourself who's doing what they want to be doing in 10, 20, 30 years. And the whole time we're helping them with internships and jobs. And so that's the kind of the whole process. But to start, actually, applications are open right now. If there's a young, Christian conservative out there who's listening to this, or someone who believes in a young Christian conservative, they can actually go to forgeleadership.org/apply. They can actually apply right now to be selected for one of these two Forge summits that are in June and July.
This seems to me such a powerful campaign because it really goes to the root of advancing American exceptionalism. The concept of American exceptionalism that has been branded as radical by the far left and the mainstream media nowadays.
That's right. Yeah, we absolutely want students, and they're here to serve students who love this country, who love God, and who know that from the Lord comes a responsibility to steward those talents and blessings you've been given, and one of the greatest is being an American. And so what does that mean for your responsibilities as a citizen here? And so we really try to instill that with them. And these, it's encouraging to work with these young people, because we're seeing them do amazing things like we talked about earlier, and their love for our country, their love for what has made America so special, and they want to be part of restoring our states and nation. Right? They're loving this amazing moment that we're in right now, because they're young, they've got the energy, and now they're seeing this opportunity to seize that I know so many of us as conservatives are excited about right now.
It must be very encouraging for you, and it's encouraging for somebody like me who watches with growing alarm over the last few years the polls and surveys that show youth are increasingly embracing socialism, faulting capitalism for the world's ills, seeing America as inherently racist. So first off, have you noticed that yourself? And second off, does that make it more challenging for you to find suitable candidates for your program?
In terms of the mass public at our universities, I think it's absolutely the case that so many Americans are growing up, taught to have disdain for America, and to have disdain for economic freedom, and especially traditional or even deeper Christian values, of course, right? Our young people that come to Forge, a young Christian conservative doesn't have the luxury of culture or of peers who understand or appreciate what they believe in, and who are increasingly skeptical of even the morality of their most foundational beliefs, right? About life and gender, and things that we have taken for granted throughout human history and Western civilization. And so they don't seem discouraged to me. That's the great part, is Forge does not set out to convert the masses, right? Our mission is very particular, to find those young people who are with us, right? Who are already with us, who have either persevered, through the nonsense of perhaps their college, education, or are at a great college like a Hillsdale or a Cedarville or a Liberty, are getting, great teaching, but they want to, now apply it into practical networks and make those connections and that. But we're catching the young people. We are meant. Forge is, our piece of the pie is in serving the ones who are already really solid, and now giving them the applicable skills and the connections necessary to really deploy them.
So after they go through your program, do you actively help facilitate their employment in some of these high-ranking places, or is it just the skills and they're on their own to find their own positions? Because I'm looking at the list just in January alone that you guys have helped place Forge grads in J.D. Vance's office, speech writing for the president, special assistant for the president. How do you guys facilitate that?
Well, we've been blessed with wonderful friends throughout the conservative movement who have really paid it forward by investing in our students, whether it's been speaking to them, whether they're in D.C. or at the state capitals where we train them at the Forge Summits, or whether it's hiring them, or whether it's, serving as their mentors. We've had members of the first, Trump presidential administration, cabinet members be personal mentors for our students for, 6 to 8 months before, and legislators and members of, former members of Congress and all that. So I say that to say we've had amazing people pay it forward for them. And so our network, the Forge network, has just been tremendous in terms of giving them opportunities. There's a mutual vetting that occurs, right? We're trying to put worthy mentors and worthy employers who will really treat them the right way and honor them and help cultivate them in front of our students. And then when somebody's coming to us to hire, we're obviously that vetting arm for them to say, hey, if somebody has the Forge stamp of approval, that means something. So we're thrilled of the chance to help them with, to your prior question, we're thrilled to help them with internship and job connections. And sometimes it's direct, right, where there's somebody who asks us, do you have somebody for this specific position? And other times it's that young person has taken the networks that we provided them, and then they've turned it in to this momentum, and they've many of them, especially all these ones in the White House, they've done all of that with the additional networks they were given as a student, and the networks that they took advantage of and kept building on.
So just to wrap up with the last question or two, Adam, what kind of feedback do you receive from your graduates?
Yeah, our graduates really cite 4 major outcomes. The most popular outcomes that they really testify to are kind of in 4 categories. The first is that they, after Forge and as they're now in the Forge network, because what we tell them is this is not a training program you graduate from, but a network of Christian conservatives gaining an influence and impact in the public arena that you're entering into. It's a network that you're graduating into. That's now several hundred people deep. And so what the 4 outcomes that they cite are that they are now feel equipped to enter an oftentimes hostile and skeptical public square. Secondly, that they have had professional clarity, gained professional clarity or professional acceleration, that we've helped them really skip to the head of the line professionally. And then third, they have deepened, renewed, or even occasionally newfound faith in God. And then lastly, the one that's kind of universally acclaimed is that they have the greatest friendships of their lives, friendships that are on mission, together, advancing what is good and true in America.
That's awesome. Wow. So give your website one more time, and what is there a deadline for the application, or is it rolling?
Yes, it's rolling, but we're only selecting this year. We're only selecting the top 100 applicants, and so somebody should not delay. They should go ahead and get that application in so that they can be considered in our next round of selections. But it's right now there's a great discount going on for application, a little bit of an early bird discount. So it's $399, $400 if they apply by April 30th. So they should take advantage of that, not only to get that price, but also to make sure they get in before the sponsor will take it. So it's Forge Leadership, FORGE leadership.org /apply.
Awesome. All right, Adam, it was great chatting with you. What a tremendous campaign you have going on. Thank you so much for coming on Bold and Blunt and speaking about it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Cheryl. It was great talking with you. Appreciate you.
I love it. I love any campaign, any endeavor that helps train the next generation of America's leaders in the correct constitutional and, dare I say, Christian way to go. I want to thank you for listening. Remind you, if you like Bold and Blunt, you may get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, at Real Life Network, at WashingtonTimes.com, and of course, wherever podcasts are available. Tune in next time. In the meanwhile, don't forget, stay blunt, stay bold.